Hello students, I want to welcome you again in a very special way to a new topic in Form 3 Chemistry syllabus, and the topic is nitrogen and its compounds. Nitrogen and its compounds. Students, in our previous lesson, we came to an end of a study on a topic that we have been discussing for the past 11 lessons. And after having come to an end of the wonderful study that we have been having in series, studying on a topic, chlorine and its compounds, students, it is therefore prudent that now we begin a new topic once again, that is nitrogen and its compounds, as I have mentioned. And today our major focus will be isolation of nitrogen from air in the laboratory and also in the industries. Students, before we get into this wonderful study, it is prudent that we appreciate and know some facts about nitrogen. The facts about nitrogen that we must know before we get into this study will make the study simple and easy for us to understand. Students, nitrogen is one of the non-metallic elements that forms part of the first 20 elements that we were introduced to in Form 2. Nitrogen has atomic number of 7. Nitrogen has atomic number of 7. Atomic number of nitrogen is 7. Electron configuration is 2, 5. And as you can see, students, we are having 5 electrons in the outermost energy level, or you can refer to energy level as valence shell. So we are having 5 electrons in the outermost energy level. It means nitrogen belongs to group 5 elements since it has 5 electrons in the outermost energy level. Students, I have mentioned that nitrogen is a non-metallic element. It means it exists as a gas at room temperature, and therefore, since it exists as a gas, students, it means nitrogen is one of the gaseous elements. So you can refer to nitrogen as a gaseous element, or you can refer to it as non-metallic element having atomic number of 7, and again the electron configuration of 2, 5. Students, as I have mentioned that nitrogen exists as a gas, the question is, does it exist as a monoatomic gas? Does it exist as a diatomic gas? Does it exist as a triatomic gas? Nitrogen exists as a diatomic gas, having 2 atoms of nitrogen combined by 3 covalent bonds, or you can refer to them as triple covalent bond, that holds nitrogen atoms, to be precise, 2 of them together. So nitrogen exists as a gas, but as a diatomic molecule, having 2 atoms of nitrogen combined together by 3 strong covalent bonds, or you can say 3 covalent bonds, also referred to as triple covalent bonds. Those 3 bonds are It has to exist as a molecule because the three bonds are very strong and they are able to hold the molecule strongly, or the two atoms strongly, in a way that the room temperature cannot even break it or break the bonds. So it exists as a molecule because of the two atoms, that is nitrogen atoms, combined or bonded covalently. Students, after having understood some facts about nitrogen, the question is, why should we study nitrogen and its compounds? Nitrogen is one of the elements, as I have mentioned, belonging to the first 20 elements, which is very vital since it can be used to manufacture different compounds which are needed even by plants, even animals, to be precise, living organisms. For example, plants need nitrogen in the form of nitrate to manufacture plant proteins, and that is why nitrogen and its compound is a topic that worth studying. Nitrogen, as I've mentioned, can be used in the form of nitrate. That is ammonium nitrate, sodium nitrate, even potassium nitrate, to be used as nitrogenous fertilizers that plant can use to acquire nutrients so as to boost the production or to boost the crop yield. Nitrogen, therefore, after it has been used by plants to manufacture plant proteins in the form of nitrate, students, animals can feed on plants, and therefore even animals can acquire nitrogen, but in the form of proteins which plants are able to manufacture or are able to form. Therefore, animals can also benefit from nitrogen. By the way, students, nitrogen is forming the composition of air, actually having the highest percentage of air, that is 78%. Nitrogen occupies or forms composition of air having 78%, having the highest percentage in comparison with other components of air. Now, students, air has got nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor in gaseous state. We have rare gases or inert gases. We have rare gases. We have argon. We have krypton. We have xenon. We have neon. And also we have dust particles. Nitrogen having 78%, oxygen 21%, then we have rare gases 0.97, and water vapor and dust particles vary in concentration or in quantity, and therefore we cannot be specific in this case. Students, as you can see, I have mentioned the components of air and also including the amount in which they exist in percentage. It means if we need oxygen, then we can isolate it from air. If we need nitrogen, we can isolate it. And that is why today we are not having the interest to isolate oxygen and have it collected, but our major focus is isolation of nitrogen from air in the laboratory and also in the industries. After having known that nitrogen is present in air, therefore we can isolate it, and that is why our focus, as you can see this setup, student, we will be using it to obtain nitrogen, to isolate nitrogen. Mark my words, not to prepare, but to isolate. It means it already exists in air, and therefore we need only to isolate nitrogen. And this setup, student, is going to make our work of isolation very precise and easy. And we start right away. The first thing we do is to pass water into the first aspirator, or you can call it reagent bottle. We pass water, and by the way, it has to be distilled water to ensure that there is no impurity that may make the process not to be feasible or workable. So when water is passed into the first reagent bottle, it means air that is found in this reagent bottle will be displaced upwards as water is collected. Remember, water is more dense than air, and therefore it is able to displace air, so that when air is displaced, it finds its way into the second reagent bottle. And the first bottle is given a name as aspirator, since we are having water aspirated into the reagent bottle. Now, when water has been allowed into the reagent bottle, it means that air, being less dense than water, will be displaced, and after the displacement of air, air is taken into the second reagent bottle through a delivery tube. In the second reagent bottle, students, we are having a substance in liquid form or in aqueous form, and the substance we have in this case can be concentrated potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. Students, the work of isolation has just commenced. So the first step is to displace air so that it can get into the second reagent bottle, which contains concentrated potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. After having displaced air into the concentrated potassium hydroxide, the question is, why must we have concentrated potassium hydroxide? The role of concentrated potassium hydroxide is to eliminate carbon 4 oxide by absorbing it. By the way, carbon 4 oxide is also forming the part of air, having a percentage of 0.03%. So the role of potassium hydroxide is to eliminate or to remove carbon 4 oxide from air by absorbing it, and that is why the first process is removal or elimination of carbon 4 oxide, CO2, by using concentrated potassium hydroxide. And by the way, carbon 4 oxide is in excess, and that is why, students, when carbon 4 oxide reacts with concentrated potassium hydroxide, then we form potassium hydrogen carbonate. When we use excess carbon 4 oxide, we form potassium hydrogen carbonate. But when we use small amount of carbon 4 oxide, we form potassium carbonate and water. But in this case, since carbon 4 oxide is in abundance, it means we will form only potassium hydrogen carbonate, and you can see it is balanced by adding one potassium on the reactant side and adding potassium one again on the product side, and you can see other elements balanced. We can also use sodium hydroxide to remove carbon 4 oxide by absorbing it to form sodium hydrogen carbonate. And don't forget, carbon 4 oxide, to form sodium hydrogen carbonate, then it has to be in excess. And if carbon 4 oxide is not in excess, it means, students, we will only form sodium carbonate and water. We balance by adding 2, and again it is balanced. So if carbon 4 oxide is in small amount to meet in limited supply, we will only form a carbonate but not hydrogen carbonates. So hydrogen carbonates are formed when we have excess carbon 4 oxide, but sodium carbonate is formed when you use carbon 4 oxide in limited supply or in small amount. So students, as you can see through our chemical equations, for the reaction between the potassium hydroxide concentrated with carbon 4 oxide, you can see we no longer have carbon 4 oxide since it has been removed. Now we have carbon 4 oxide free air, to mean air that is having no carbon 4 oxide gas because it has been absorbed. Now carbon 4 oxide free air is taken into a combustion tube. What happens in the combustion tube, students? We are heat. What are we heating? We are heating copper tannins. Why must we have heat to heat copper tannins? The role of copper tannins is to eliminate oxygen from air, because until this moment we have only removed carbon 4 oxide. So how does copper tannin remove oxygen from air? Copper tannin, which is a brown metal, reacts with oxygen to form copper 2 oxide, which is black in color. So students, if you're asked in examination that explain the observations made in the combustion tube, you simply say that brown copper metal turns black. Or you can say simply copper metal forms a black deposit, or you can say a black deposit is formed, and then you explain by saying this is due to the fact that when copper metal reacts with oxygen, it forms copper 2 oxide, which is a black solid or a black deposit. So the observation made in the combustion tube is the formation of a black deposit, or you can simply say brown solid or brown copper metal turns black. And I reiterate by saying this is due to the fact that copper is oxidized, or copper metal reacts with oxygen to form copper 2 oxide, which is black in color. Students, why are we required to have heat? Remember, one of the factors affecting the rate of reaction is temperature. When the temperature is high, students, the rate of reaction also increases. So the presence of it is to increase the temperature, and when the temperature increases, it means the number of collisions per unit time will also increase. And when the kinetic energy has increased and causing the increased collisions, it means the rate of reaction must also increase. So the role of heat is to speed the rate of reaction by increasing the kinetic energy of the reactants, which in turn causes an increased number of effective collisions, thereby increased rate of reaction. Well, so we have explained the removal of oxygen from air. Removal of oxygen from air. Students, what are the components of air which we have not isolated? The remaining components of air hitherto, which we have not eliminated, are as follows. We have nitrogen as not eliminated. We have rare gases. By the way, argon is one of the rare gases which is actually in abundance, and we have others like krypton, we have xenon, and again we have neon. So we have not removed nitrogen gas and rare gases and even dust particles. We have not removed even the dust particles. We have only removed oxygen and carbon dioxide. So, nitrogen, rare gases, the two are allowed into the collection part. And we have water in this case. And the two gases are collected over water. We have the level of water being this part, and we collect now the gases here. So we can call it impure nitrogen gas. We call it impure nitrogen gas because it is having other impurities like rare gases, argon, krypton, xenon, and neon. Being the rare gases, it means nitrogen is impure. And since nitrogen is having a percentage of 78, it means we can have it dominating, the gases collected. And that's why normally we say that we are collecting impure nitrogen. We are not saying we are collecting impure rare gases because they are only but in small amount, having 0.97%, and we have nitrogen since it is in abundance. And we are collecting nitrogen over water method because it is insoluble in water. It cannot dissolve in water. And by the way, when a gas cannot dissolve in water, it means it is not able to form hydrogen bond with water. And when a compound or a gas does not form hydrogen bond with water or other solvents, it means it cannot dissolve in that particular solvent. That is why we are able to collect nitrogen over water method. We cannot collect hydrogen chloride, for example, over water method because it will dissolve in water. But nitrogen being non-polar, being insoluble, it means we can collect it over water method. So if you are asked to give a reason as to why these gases can be collected or nitrogen gas can be collected by this method, that is over water method, it simply means the property which necessitates the collection is insolubility. It is insoluble in water. So students, we have seen how we can isolate nitrogen from air. Our second step now is to know how we can isolate nitrogen in the industries. How can we isolate nitrogen gas from air in the industries? We can do this by employing known as fractional distillation. We are going to employ a process known as fractional distillation. We were introduced to this process known as fractional distillation in Form 1, where we were informed on how we can obtain or separate the component of air students, just as the name suggests, fractional distillation, it means we will be separating every component of air step by step in fractions to mean one after the other the component of the air will be eliminated until we obtain nitrogen. And since this is a process that is carried out in the industries, it is aiming at producing or isolating large amount of nitrogen gas for commercial purposes. In the laboratory, it is for the matter of studies, but in the industries, it is done so as to enable a lot of nitrogen gas collected for commercial purposes. Fractional distillation is the process by which miscible liquids such as, for example, we can have ethanol and water having different but close boiling points. Fractional distillation is the process of separating miscible liquids having different but close boiling points. It means we cannot separate gases by using fractional distillation in their gaseous state. It means we need to liquefy. And that is why we can now finish by writing in the industry, we can separate the components of air by fractional distillation of liquefied air. It means it has to be liquefied so that it exists in liquids. The first step, students, is to know what we want to separate. We want to separate dust particles. We want to separate carbon dioxide. We want to separate oxygen gas. We want to separate water vapor. We want to separate argon or rare gases, so that at the end of the process we obtain nitrogen, or we have nitrogen isolated. So the first step, students, is purification or removal of dust particles. Removal of dust particles. And this is done by electrostatic precipitation. So the first chamber is we allow the air in, and then we have removal of dust particles in the purifier. So the first chamber is having the purifiers, which are able to remove the dust particles. Now, which common purifier is used or is employed to remove the dust particle? The common purifier is known as electrostatic precipitator. Electrostatic precipitator. Just as the name suggests, electrostatic means charges, precipitator, it means it is a device or a purifier having the walls, so as air is passed, it means the dust particles in air are charged. When the dust particles are charged, it means they will form the positive ions and the negative ions, for example, and one wall will be having a positive column or a positive side, and another one will be negative. So those impurities, for example, the dust particle and the negatively charged particle will migrate to the one that is positively charged, and the positively charged dust particles will migrate to the negatively charged one, and the positively charged dust particles the negatively charged dust particles migrate to the positive wall, and the positively charged particles migrate to the negative wall. It means the unlike changes attract. So you have the positive migrate to the negative, and the negative migrate to the positive, and the dust particles will remain attracted intact in the precipitator, having now dust particle free air into the second column. So if you are told to explain what happens in the purifier, you simply say that when air is passed into the purifier, the dust particles are removed by a process known as electrostatic precipitator, whereby the dust particles are charged and therefore are attracted on the walls. Since the walls are having the opposite charges, the negatively charged particles are attracted to the positively charged wall, and the positively charged dust particles are attracted to the negatively charged wall, leaving the air free of dust particles. Then, dust particle free air is taken to intake pump. What is the role of intake pump? It is able to pump dust particle free air, to mean air without dust particle, into the second chamber. In the second chamber, students, we are having concentrated potassium hydroxide, as we had mentioned in the first part of isolating nitrogen in the laboratory, that potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, highly concentrated, can be used to eliminate carbon 4 oxide by absorbing it. So the role of potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide is to eliminate carbon 4 oxide by absorbing it. And I told you, in excess, the compound or the product formed will be potassium hydrogen carbonate or sodium hydrogen carbonate. And if we use carbon 4 oxide in small amount, we shall form sodium carbonate and water. And you can refer to the first part, which we explained those equations and the chemical reactions. So, carbon 4 oxide has been removed, and therefore we refer to the remaining part as carbon 4 oxide free air. To me, it is now air free of carbon 4 oxide. Now, what happens in the second column or in the second chamber? In the second chamber, we remove water vapor. How do we remove water vapor? We remove water vapor by condensing the carbon 4 free air, to a temperature of -25. So in this chamber, we have condensation. And remember, in this chamber, we have removal of CO2. In this chamber, we have condensation to remove water vapor. So we have removal of water vapor. So, students, how do we remove water vapor? We remove water vapor by cooling carbon 4 free air that is having no carbon 4 oxide gas, to a temperature of -25. Why do we have this temperature being -25? It is to enable the carbon 4 oxide free air to solidify or to condense. In the process of doing that, the water vapor is removed. Students, in examination, you can be asked to describe how carbon 4 oxide is removed. I have explained that. And also to describe how water vapor is removed. And again, you can be asked why to remove either carbon 4 oxide and water vapor. We remove carbon 4 oxide and water vapor because if carbon 4 oxide gas or water vapor goes unremoved, it means they will solidify and clog the pipes. And that is why they have to be removed. And when they clog the pipes, remember they will expand. And when they expand, they will cause the breaking of the pipes. And will make the process not workable or feasible. So we have explained how we remove water vapor, we have explained how to remove dust particles, and even carbon 4 oxide. Now, after having removed water vapor, it means we are now having water vapor free air. Water vapor free air. Now what happens? We have removed dust particles, carbon 4 oxide, and water vapors. It means we are having 3 components unremoved. That is nitrogen gas, oxygen gas, rare gases, majorly argon, since it forms the highest part of the rare gases. So how can we separate the other gases so that we have nitrogen as the gas of interest that we want to eliminate? So we do what is called fractional distillation. But before we do fractional distillation, we have to liquefy. So we have liquefaction, or we can call it condensation of water vapor free air. Water vapor free air simply means there is no water vapor, we only have air, so it is free of water vapor. So we condense. So condensing is done by compressing the remaining parts of air, that is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. So we do what is called compression by passing the water vapor free air to compressor, and we compress it to a pressure of 200 atmospheres. We subject the water vapor free air to a pressure of 2000 atmospheres at a temperature of negative 200, and after having done that, we shall have liquefied the air. So if you're trying to explain what happens after removal of water vapor, you simply say, I simply say that water vapor is taken to the compressor, where it is compressed to a temperature of negative 200, and again to a pressure of 200, so as to liquefy the water vapor free air, and therefore the remaining gases will be but in liquid forms. So we have the remaining part of air taken to the fractional distillation chamber. Fractional distillation chamber. So we have liquefied nitrogen, we have oxygen, and we have argon, or you can just say rare gases, but we don't want to use argon because argon is forming the highest part. So what is done is a fractional distillation after having liquefied air. So what we're going to do is to understand how we can separate the liquefied nitrogen gas, oxygen gas, and argon. This is done, as I've mentioned, by employing a process known as fractional distillation, which will utilize a difference in their boiling points. Now, nitrogen has a boiling point of, as a BP or boiling point of negative 196, and we have degrees Celsius. Then we have oxygen gas having the boiling point of negative 183. Students, nitrogen has the lowest boiling point. Don't confuse that now you are seeing a big value of 196 and therefore you want to say that it has the highest. No. When we have a negative sign before a bigger value, it means that the number is the smaller one. So nitrogen gas having the boiling point of negative 196 makes it to have the lowest boiling point. The bigger the value, having a negative sign before it makes it to be a smaller value. And for that case, we will say that nitrogen will be distilled off fast, since it has the lowest boiling point. So we have negative 196 degrees Celsius, and we have nitrogen gas distilled off, followed by argon, which is having 186 as the boiling point. So we have 186 at the boiling point. We have argon. And finally, oxygen will be separated or left after the two have been removed, since it has the boiling point of negative 183 degrees Celsius, and we have oxygen gas now removed. So as you can see, this is fractional distillation of liquefied air. We liquefy it when we are doing the final part of separation of the three and removed gases. And as you can see, students, this is one of the processes which eventually gives the highest amount of nitrogen gas. And you can see it is having no impurity. It means this is the best method to get pure nitrogen gas in its liquefied form. So we shall be having them liquefied. And that is the end of our study, students. In our second topic, we will be handling nitrogen and its compounds still, but our subtopic now will be how can we prepare nitrogen gas in the laboratory. Today we have only done the isolation. In our second topic will be preparation. You must know the difference between preparation and isolation. Isolation, you remove the gas or the component which already exists, and preparation, you prepare by using reagents. May God bless you. Attached are the notes and assignments. Please do and submit for marking. And I want to believe that you have enjoyed my lesson, and may God bless you.